Hello and welcome to the very first Talk O Time. You're listening to the voice of Bailey McCulley, and I'm so excited to introduce this month's guest, none other than the incredible Jen Hodge. Jen is a bass player from BC, but her music gets toes tapping across the world. This was recorded at the Spring Stepstravaganza, which is a non-regularly occurring event that I organize with Rebecca Lucero here in Seattle. After classes and before the dance, Jen and I sat down over Zoom with the Stepstravaganza participants, and we talked about jazz. Why do we make it, and how do we think about it? It's a long, unedited recording, but the ideas Jen shares are beautiful, and I'm so excited to be able to share them with you. We started the recording a little late, so you are hopping into a conversation that's had just a few minutes head start, but I hope you enjoy it nonetheless.
Other people that you folks will have seen around. And in November, I moved to New York, and was really having a great time getting set up there. And I had a lot of opportunities right out of the gate to work with some really amazing musicians that I really admire out there. Probably you've all experienced at one point or another various different swing groups, Gordon Howe or John Eric Kelso or Dennis Lickman, who runs the Mona's Jam. So those are some of my buds out there. And until further notice, I'm hanging out at my parents' place on Vancouver Island. But that's a bit about me and where we might have crossed paths. I see a lot of people here that I know, and I'm very happy to see your names and some of your faces.
Cool. Well, how did you... I think I've heard the Jen Hodge origin story a few times in some different circumstances, but how did you get started playing music, and how did this become the centerpiece of your life?
Yeah, I mean, we always had music in the house. My mom plays the flute, and she played in the local concert band when I was growing up here, and always took regular lessons. And my dad plays guitar, and my mom also plays. My mom's from England, and she also plays English folk instruments and music. So she plays English concertina and penny whistles and wooden flutes, and she's just recently started playing the mandolin because she has arthritic hands and she can't play her silver flute anymore because it's too heavy, but she can play. She started playing mandolin, so that's pretty cool. There was always music playing in the house, like even on like school mornings. Like by the time I woke up and went downstairs, there was just music playing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I definitely always felt like I was going to be involved with music, and it was actually before I started playing music, I was into dance.
Oh, cool!
As a little kid, I was in many extracurricular dance classes, mostly. It was like the early 90s, so the early 90s little girl dance classes, those ones.
Nice.
But I also did, I was super into it, so I did like a lot of the different options that they offered. I did a little bit of ballet, and like musical theater dancing classes, but lots of the kind of like, I don't really know what to call it. I think they actually called it jazz dancing, which I would definitely not call it at all, but like,
we all know what you mean, I think.
Early 90s jazz dance classes.
This kind of jazz.
Dance Mix 93.
Yeah.
Jazz. Not jazz at all. Contemporary jazz, thank you.
Yeah. That. Yeah.
So, a few things kind of happened all around the same time when I was about 11, which was I went through puberty earlier than everybody else, and I think I've met all of you in person probably. I'm quite tall. It's especially for a female and especially for an 11-year-old. I guess I've been this tall since I was 11. Just
wow.
very quickly and was just terribly awful. So I no longer felt very comfortable going to my contemporary jazz dance classes in leotards because I was like twice the size of all the other girls in the dance class, and I was, my body was changing. It was horribly mortifying. So I started showing up in like baggy t-shirts and shorts, and then the dance teacher was like, I can't work with you if you're going to dress like that. And I was like, well, fine, I'll just stay home. It was also around then that we had to, if we wanted to take band in school, that was around the time you had to sign up. And probably within like a few weeks of filling out those band forms, I discovered the music of the Beatles. They just came on TV at a friend's house after school, and I was like, this music is great. And I've always been somebody that, like, I have a very, like, aural memory. If I hear something, I tend to remember it, and I remember just having those Beatles songs stuck in my head for, like, every day. And I went home from that day at my friend's house, and I was like, Mom and Dad, do you have any Beatles music I could listen to? And they were like, what do you want to listen to that for?
Oh, really?
Yeah. My parents didn't, for all we had music playing all the time, it was not that. And I guess most other people's parents my age probably did listen to that. And I think my parents were like, yeah, that's like, yeah, sure, that's good music, but like, there's all this other music that we've discovered in the past 30 years, so, okay, really? You want to listen to the Beatles? Okay, yeah. And they dug me out a cassette tape that was somewhere in the house, and I just listened to that non-stop, and it was that discovering the Beatles that influenced how I filled out my band form, which you couldn't choose guitar for concert band in my school, but you could choose electric bass. I guess they gave you the tuba music to play, or double bass music if there was any, and probably the thought was that you'd be able to progress from that to the stand-up bass. But so my top 3 choices on the band form were bass, percussion, and saxophone. And I always feel like, I imagine when they were sorting through the band forms and they got to mine, they were probably like, some kid wants to play bass? We don't have to twist somebody's arm? Or like,
yeah.
punish the bad kid by making them play the instrument no one wants to play? Oh, great. So because I wanted to play bass, I got the position, and then also the teachers were like, hey, you want to play bass? Do you want to play bass in all of the extracurricular ensembles as well? So
nice.
That was a benefit to growing up in Courtenay, British Columbia, being the only kid that wanted to play bass in the whole town. So I got a lot of opportunities from getting to do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did you start with, what kind of music did you start playing in those early band years? Did you play jazz? Did you play classical music?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously was very keen to start learning Beatles music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely, would learn that stuff, and, comparable classic rock music. I loved The Who. They had a great bass player in that band, John Entwistle, by the way. Led Zeppelin, that kind of thing. And then I always really cared about being able to read music. So, between my British rock interests and just caring about wanting to learn more about music in general. I practiced whatever I could get bass sheet music for, I guess. So there's definitely the concert band music that we were doing in school.
Yeah.
And classical stuff that we had around from whatever my mom had. And then because I also played in the jazz bands at school and like the rhythm section for the vocal jazz groups, and like anytime any kind of choir needed a rhythm section,
Yeah.
There was that. So like there was a pretty big mixed bag. I eventually wound up playing in a lot of pit orchestras before I graduated from high school too, both the like school productions and just any kind of like local productions. So musical theater. That kind of thing.
So then how did you find jazz music? How did you find yourself, because I'm assuming this is all still behind this kind of bass. How did you go from here to here?
Well, let's see. So when I was in grade 11, that's 11th grade for all of you south of the border. I guess at that point I was playing in the senior jazz band at my high school, I remember there were some. The band director said to me, "Okay, you're representing the school now in the top jazz band, and so you have to play the real bass." And of course, I was quite insulted by that insinuation.
Yeah.
And I was not very happy about it. I was like, oh, that thing's not very rock star. But obviously, 16-year-old me was wrong about that. But the band director basically said, like, well, if you want to be in the band, you have to play the upright bass, and our first concert's in a few weeks, so it's your call. Because if you're not going to do it, I got to find someone else who will real quick. So I was like, fine. Mom, I need to be picked up. I have to bring a double bass home from school. And I took it home that first weekend, the school bass. And I spent the weekend playing it, and I was like, oh no, this is actually really fun.
The rock and roll dreams down the drain.
So I mean, I really fell in love with the upright bass because of that. And then also that same year, there were some very cool kids in grade 12, the year ahead of me, and they were into listening to jazz, and more like the kind of Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock jazz. But everybody needs a bass player, including those guys, and they were like, well, Jen, would you like to come be in our outside of school, we're so cool jazz band? And I was like, yes, I do, I know, right? So we would hang out outside of school, and I learned a lot about that kind of jazz from hanging out with those people, and it was really fun. And I definitely got really hooked on playing small group jazz from doing that. That would have been my probably my introduction to like playing jazz, especially based on just making up bass lines based on chord changes. And I was like, man, this is really fun, and I still think that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when was the first time you, how did you find yourself interested in swing jazz? Because that's a different category of jazz completely. How did you find it and start also playing it?
Swing.
Yeah, swing jazz.
Yeah, well, I guess I wound up going to college for jazz. Because I definitely wanted to go into music, and jazz made the most sense because audition for classical programs, you basically have to have started playing when you were 2, and I didn't do that. So at that time, the jazz schools seemed like the best option, and I got into Capilano in Vancouver, which was really exciting for me, because I had no concept of like whether like I was good for my town where I was the only bass player, but like I definitely had no idea if I actually sucked or if I was all right or whatever. So I was very excited to learn that I was adequate enough to get into a school in Vancouver. So when I moved out there, I met right away and became friends with people like Bria Skonberg. Bria was a year ahead of me in the school I went to, and Evan Arnson and I were in the same year.
Oh, and, cool.
We became fast friends, and I quickly met all of his family. Who else did I meet? I mean, there was like a crew of those folks, and Bria was already leading a band that played traditional jazz that Evan was in, and so because I became friends with those guys really quickly, and they were already playing gigs and like flying to play festivals and stuff. We were like 18. Actually, I was 17 then, but I met and became friends with them, and I would start going to their gigs, and then they would start calling me when they needed a bass sub, and so I started playing traditional jazz with them, and then we all just kind of as a community connected with the community of dancers in Vancouver and Seattle fairly early on, as I recall, and that led to playing swing. I can remember people like Alex Yen, at whose house Bailey is right now, and Joel Schwartz in Vancouver were both people that we all befriended when we were still pretty young, and they knew a lot about both the kind of trad world and the swing world musically, and were very involved with the dancing, and very thankfully for us, I would say, like that they were into talking about like, oh yeah, like when you play for dancers, like this is the more the feel, the sound, as opposed to this, and like it was great. Also back then, oh man, I sound so old when I say that. but back then there were a lot of these West Coast Dixieland festivals that would happen kind of all up and down the coast, and they would I'm not sure if there's any of them that are still around, especially not after COVID-19. If there's any, I played one last year in Pismo Beach, California.
I think the Olympia one still happens as well.
Great. So there used to be a whole bunch of those, and we would play at them and or just drive to them for fun. And dancers used to turn out in droves to those things too.
Cool.
Which is something that I miss being a kid. Although I guess just in the natural course of things, there's like more swing dance events than there used to be. So like it probably all comes out in the wash. But it was great to like go to those festivals, and you'd always run into dancers, and like our crew and then the dancers were like the only people in that age group at those things, and so we all became friends, and we'd all learn from each other. That was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So is there anyone that you mentioned Bria and the which Arnson was it?
Family.
The whole Arnson Evan. I mean, other than those folks, like are there some people that have sort of been your jazz family through, and like who are your mentors, and who has kind of gone with you through your growth as from this young musician to where you are now.
Yeah, there's definitely been folks like that, and yeah, that's a very important thing with music. And I've been very fortunate to have people in my life such as Simon Stribling, who I'm not sure if any of the folks that I can see right now would have encountered Simon. But he's like 10 or 15 years older than me and Evan and Josh, etc. And Simon's this like wild Australian trumpet player, band leader, and he married an amazing drummer from Vancouver. So he had moved out to this part of the world, and he was keen to get some traditional jazz happening, and he started hiring all of us to play his gigs with them. And so we all learned so much from Simon. We've all been very heavily influenced by him. And he actually tuned in to Lindy Bout, which was pretty exciting. When Josh was DJing his own recordings, Simon was in the side chat being like, "Yeah, Joshy! Oh, that's hot! Woo,
That's great.
Really
Yeah,
Simon's been huge. He would do a lot of he's a very skilled band leader in that he could make us do things on the bandstand that we didn't even know that we were capable of doing, and that was really fun as being a teenage musician and working with somebody like that, because you'd leave and go like, I'm pretty good. Yeah. And then you'd like go play another gig with people that weren't as good as him, and like think like, oh yeah, like I can do this, and be like, oh shit, I can't do this. Wow. So that he was pretty huge for our whole community. And then of course Lloyd Arntzen, similar, would just throw us these opportunities, and I learned so much from playing with both of those guys actually. They'd like call these tunes, and I'd be like, oh, I've never heard of that before, and they'd be like, instead of being like, oh, that's okay, do you know this one instead, they'd be like, that's okay, it's in the key of F, it starts on C7, 1, 2, 1, 2, like, yeah, that's a great way to learn.
Wow.
I'm so grateful to those guys that they would keep hiring me, even if, because you sure after those experiences would go home and learn those tunes that you didn't know.
Yeah.
And come back and know them. And for people that are that much older than you to like give you that opportunity is really huge and really important, and very, very inspiring. I'm sure I've got some other influences. Oh yeah, Alan Matheson is somebody that I wanted to mention as well, who's a trumpet player and piano player in Vancouver, who is a really brilliant musician. He's kind of like, probably you guys have seen him at Lindy Bout. Definitely both me and Josh have hired him for various Lindy Bout bands in the past few years, and he's started to do more band leading for Hot Club Swing, which is great because his arrangements are really profound. But yeah, he's been a really great mentor as well. In fact, I'm really grateful to him for when I first left New York during the pandemic here. I that was not really premeditated. They started closing the border, and I was like, oh my god, I have to leave.
Yeah.
Pretty freaky. So I got back out to Vancouver, and I had a bass where I was staying, and I was like, okay, I have to practice bass every day. I can't let my chops disappear. But I didn't really feel like very creative. I didn't really feel like, you know, it was hard. It was I don't feel it. Yeah. Alan, I wound up doing some chatting with him, and he sent me. I didn't even say those things explicitly. I don't know if he just like could tell I needed some inspiration, but like he sent me this really rare recording of Duke Ellington and the bassist Oscar Pettiford playing this great little tune that I'd never heard before.
Cool.
And it was wanting to be able to play that like first made me feel like practicing after the pandemic started, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Where do you go for inspiration, both like bass specific? You know, you mentioned that you grew up in a town where you were the only bass player, and yeah, like who for bassists, who do you look to? I mean, you mentioned Oscar Pettiford, but yeah, who are these people you look to?
Well, definitely, there's recordings were, you know, always my primary source of inspiration, especially way back then, and at that those early days of my bass playing, it was bass players like Paul McCartney and John Entwistle from The Who, or John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. And then once I got into listening to jazz, probably the first bass player I was really excited about listening to was Ray Brown, who was with the Oscar Peterson trio, and like he recorded with a great many of the jazz greats. And then also Christian McBride, who is, I guess at that time when I was excited about Christian McBride, he was like in his 20s. Now he's only in his 40s now. So yeah, he's an amazing bass player.
Cool.
And some of my other favorite bass players that I might go to on recordings are Edgar Meyer, and of course bassists like Jimmy Blanton and Walter Page from the swing era. I really love like older stuff. Like there's a bass player called John Lindsay who's on a lot of the Jelly Roll Morton recordings, or Steve Brown is on a lot of different bands from those 20s dance band recordings.
Cool.
And then also I really love tuba playing, and some of you might know that I started playing the tuba in the past year and a half ago. I started playing tuba.
Occasionally dressed as a cockroach.
Not often enough.
That's what's missing.
But before I started playing tuba, I was like, there's like a lot of early jazz recordings that have tuba. I was like trying to get that feel with my bass.
Yeah.
And then some of my very favorite music in the whole world ever is New Orleans brass band music.
Yeah.
Extremely funky bass lines, all played on sousaphone, which is a type of tuba, by the way. So, I'm trying to be able to play that stuff on an actual tuba these days, but I have spent a lot of time learning that on the bass as well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then so that's just recordings. But then in terms of like, I go to see as much live music as I possibly can.
Yeah.
So I'll like always show up if there's like some gig happening after mine is done. I will go to that before I go home, or if it's possible for me to catch something before I have to go play, I will definitely jump on that opportunity. If I have a night off, I'll like see what's on and go to it. And that was definitely easy to do in New York because there's just so much happening everywhere all the time. So I definitely go to a lot of live music performances.
Yeah, that's cool. You mentioned practicing, and I was, I'm kind of interested to hear your approach to practicing, since, so I've been, and I don't know, maybe Damien might want to chime in. I've been reading Wynton Marsalis's Letters to a Young Jazz Musician, I think it's called. But there's this quote at the very beginning where he's just come from a high school band concert playing some attempted swing jazz, and he wasn't super impressed, but he was talking to the person he's writing to, and he was quoting John Coltrane, who said that Coltrane said, "I only practice when I'm working on something," and to that Wynton said, "So practice means the something Train talked about. It could be your sound, a deeper swing, solo construction, or just hearing bass lines. The bottom line is practice something every moment you can. Don't just sit around and wait for something to happen. That something is waiting on you." And I was wondering what your thoughts are on this kind of mysterious something that he talks about, because I think as jazz dancers and musicians, I think we all kind of see that there's something there, but I don't know, what is your take? What is the something that you are kind of chasing after right now? I think it changes a lot, but for now, what's your something?
Yeah, that does change for sure. Right now, because of the circumstances that we're in, I've definitely been focusing on trying to before the pandemic hit, I was averaging about 4 hours of playing the bass every day between gigging and practicing, sometimes more, sometimes 2, sometimes 7. And that is the kind of thing that you just can't do if you're not in shape.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, at least for me right now, it's just, I can't really play bass for 4 hours every day. I don't want to squander the opportunity to spend time with my family. It's just not inspiring past a certain point, and so I can't play bass for 4 hours every day right now. So when I'm practicing, I'm working on left hand strengthening exercises. Most, if not all of which, I'm just making up. So I've made up a few, maybe I could even show you.
Sure, yeah.
I'm trying to do my warm-ups without using open strings, so taking away the opportunity to rest your hand by playing an open string, I think is helping. And then I've been looking for keeping an ear out for things when I'm listening to maybe be able to work on. And I've been working on transcribing this Duke Ellington tune from the New Orleans Suite called Portrait of Wellman Breaux, who's another great bass player on record that everyone ought to check out. Let's see. And that thing is so hard, and it's in a nasty key with no open strings. It's like this fast-moving, repetitive figure that kind of travels around the instrument. And the first chorus is a bunch of double stops, which is where you play 2 notes at once on adjacent strings. And over the course of the tune, the bass line covers the like actual entire range of the instrument,
Wow.
except for not the lowest open E, because there's no open strings. That'd be too easy. So that's it here. Actually, I probably have to unplug my headphones. So, can you say something, Bailey?
Yeah, what's up?
Oh, right. Okay.
Not too echoey? Cool.
Yeah.
I can turn off my mic for a second, if that's helpful.
Okay. It's a good opportunity to play a little warm-up because I think I'll be playing some tunes at some point. So let's see. This okay, sounds in tune. I'm gonna take this off. Hang on. There we go. So the no open strings warm-up I've been doing is like this. And I would totally use a metronome if I was doing this without people watching me. So, yeah, that's just like kind of goes through all of the different, I don't know, all sorts of different hand positions. There's lots of shifting, and like because there's no, because I'm not using open strings, so you have to be pressing down all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's see let's see if I can take a stab at that Dukantin thing I was just mentioning without being very warmed up. So like the first chorus is these double stops that are right here, which is a pretty awkward part of the instrument. And check this out. Yeah, good.
Woohoo!
Real hard. and it goes like that for like almost 5 minutes, so it's definitely hard.
That's amazing.
I have not yet made it all the way through. But that's those are some examples of things that I've been inspired to work on lately. I've also a month ago I did a solo bass live concert for an hour on the internet, and I had never done a solo bass performance before. I had a couple of things that I'd come up with for like being featured occasionally, but like most of the time solo bass just doesn't happen very often. So I spent a lot of like having that on my calendar gave me a lot to work on, because I had to come up with an hour's worth of material that could stand up by itself.
Yeah.
And I have been still practicing that stuff to just keep it in shape, so that hopefully when I go back to playing more typical type gigs, I'll be able to have those in my back pocket to pull out whenever. And I'm trying to still like work on learning tunes. Like I have a list of tunes that got called at various times in the 4 months after I moved to New York, that I kept a list of ones that I didn't know very well, so that I could go home and learn them. And I've made less of a dent on that since I've been out here than I initially would have liked, and that's mainly because I'll start practicing them and be like, oh, only Gornau calls that tune. I don't know when I'm going to play with Gornau again. Oh, and like,
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to learn tunes, and I'm just kind of moving a little bit more slowly through that, and just trying to be okay with myself about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got a hold of a tuba a few weeks ago as well.
Cool.
So I've been working on that, and I've spent quite a bit of time since I got a hold of a tuba, aside from just trying to get my chops back because I didn't play it for more than 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's hard with a brass instrument. I've actually been, speaking of Wynton Marsalis, that he put a video out with a bunch of Jazz at Lincoln Center guys and gal a couple of weeks ago, and that has a really great tuba part on it that I've been learning. And it's great practice too because it's very, very slow and like practicing. I've actually been practicing that part on my bass too when I'm still doing warm-ups as well, because that those really slow, long, low supportive notes, they got to be in tune, and it's hard when it's slow. So yeah, definitely that's if you're taking notes, that video is it's called Memorial for Us All, and it's they do Flee as a Bird, like a New Orleans dirge, and then Disney Ramble afterwards. It's really, really great. Every musician in that video is like one of the best in the business. And then I've kind of been ticking some tuba wish list material off the list. There's a musician called Tiny Parham, who I really got obsessed with a few years ago because I found out that he was born in Canada at like the turn of the last century. And I'm like, why doesn't anybody in Canada talk about Tiny Parham? We should be so proud of Tiny Parham. And he's great, and there's a lot of great tuba playing on a lot of his recordings.
And what was his name? Tiny Parham?
Tiny Parham, P-A-R-M.
Parham. I was thinking Parm like Parmesan. Tiny Parham.
Yeah. I've particularly been working on a tune called Black Cat Moan, which is like a blues tune, but it has a cool interlude section and part where the tuba plays the melody. So I've been
That's cool.
working on that.
Yeah. So I wanted to. You kind of have talked about like, I mean, right now I think it's especially tough to find your groove or have a groove or remember what the groove feels like. But I think, even in normal times, that's something that everybody feels more strongly than other times. But what do you, as a musician, do when you kind of hit that funk where it's hard to feel the good jazz feels?
Yeah, it's really hard because you can't force yourself to have good jazz feels.
Yeah.
If they're not there. It kind of can feel bad to like make yourself do it anyway. So I think it's important to be like sensitive to that. I think you can still practice every day.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like technical stuff, and just be like, okay, it's like brushing your teeth. You gotta just keep your hands on the instrument or keep your feet on the floor, and even if it's just like half an hour, we can do it. And I think, like, for me, something that always helps is just listening to music that I love, and like, sure enough, eventually it'll make me want to play it, and I'll try.
Yeah.
Like the first couple weeks of being back in Canada, that was really where I was at. It took that recording that Alan sent me for me to like do more than just the bare minimum. Like, okay, you just have to play some bass. even if it's like 10 minutes and you're so distracted the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. It sucks to feel that way. It's very frustrating. And when you're there, it can definitely feel like, I don't know if I'll ever be inspired again.
Yeah.
I think beating yourself up about possibly never being inspired again definitely doesn't help you feel inspired. So if you can acknowledge that you feel that way and like just try and do the like minimal maintenance things and then like let yourself relax and like do things like do or watch or listen to things that have always inspired you in the first place. I think that could help.
Yeah.
And I think inspiration for music or dancing or any kind of art really can come from anywhere if you let it. Like if you're just really not feeling the jazz and it's making you sad because you can't do it with your friends right now, like probably you can like get in the zone for cooking or for like painting a wall or like running a great bath or something like that. Like by like being willing to be present in any of the other things that you might be doing. I think that can help. I think there's inspiration to be found anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really good to remember. Jazz doesn't have to be your only inspiration. And maybe it shouldn't be either, because that's a little bit too codependent of a relationship. Yeah.
I've definitely heard great musicians talk about like finding the inspiration for a tune from like watching the way that somebody walks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finding inspiration in funny places.
Or like, you know, they had some really outstanding meal and
Yeah, I heard Bonnie Northgrave at a concert in Bellingham one time, and I like, it was just the funniest contrast. She sang this song, or played this song about like heartbreak, and then immediately after she talked about how the next song is about a sandwich and a life-changing mustard, and I thought that was the most amazing thing, that you can find jazz in a sandwich and some mustard, and I'm like, oh, you're my people. But that's it. Yeah, that's, I think, a much more sustainable, I guess, way to find inspiration.
And if you can find inspiration everywhere, in everything from other recordings to mustard, you may as well, right? Like if there's inspiration to be found in mustard, you may as well delight in it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to live.
Sorry, messing with sound stuff. So speaking of like, jazz groove and I guess inspiration, and I guess like finding the jazz feels, like you've talked about all this work you've put into becoming an excellent musician, but I wonder if you could kind of speak on how you look at jazz and how you participate in it, because it is so different than like a piece of written music where you play exactly those notes, and it has a really different feeling. So how do you see jazz and participate in it?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, it's very, like jazz, I feel like it's a communal art form.
Yeah.
Like you're, ideally you're getting to play with buddies.
Right.
Yeah, but I think, like, beyond the obvious, okay, there's a rhythm section and that supports the horns or whoever's playing the melody. I really feel like, ideally, everybody is supporting each other when you're playing jazz together.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the things that I love about playing for dancers, because I feel that same mutual support between the musicians and the dancers as well.
Cool.
So then, yeah, like the more people in, in on the experience of all kind of mutually supporting each other is a pretty beautiful thing. And it's like that's very much a communal effort, and it's a really profound thing to be part of an experience where everybody's being very aware of each other and reacting to what each other is doing. And in jazz, there's like, if everybody is also there to serve the music, then it's a really beautiful thing, like it's what is created is very much greater than the sum of its parts. There's a real profound, like, thing that's greater than all of us that we make when we participate. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. What are some of what is it like to play for dancers? What is it like to be on the stage and making the music? And, I think we all are used to being on the dance floor. What is it like to make that music that we're moving to?
I mean, like when everything's like, when all the elements are really there and happening, right? It's there's not many better feelings out there than, like, you're just like, especially for me, like playing the bass, like it's my job to make it feel really good.
Yeah.
It feels good for all of the other people on the stage. It feels good for all the people dancing, and, like, of course, therefore, it feels really good for me. Like, there's a real euphoria that you get from playing music that feels really good for people that are dancing, and the exchange of energy between the dance floor and the bandstand is it's really huge. Pardon me. It's like you definitely get a lot of endorphins, I think, from doing that. And I know that that's true when you're dancing too, especially to a live band. That it's really exciting. Oh yeah, someone typed the word synergy on the chat.
Ooh.
Definitely.
Cool.
When we previewed the Brothers Arnson album that's coming tomorrow at Online Lindy Boat.
Yeah, and everyone should go to that.
Oh yeah.
I'll send the link somehow. Yeah.
Okay, great. When Evan played the preview, it was one of the fast ones. It was either Splogger or Viper Mad, and I just started crying because when he was playing that recording, because the energy on, like, probably a lot of you were at that night. Were you there, Bailey?
Yeah. Was that Sunday or a Saturday?
It was a Sunday night.
Yeah. The one where there were a lot of jazz tears that night.
There always are at Lindy Bouch, for sure.
Yeah.
But that night sticks out for a lot of people I know. Like, all of the musicians, like, we all remember that night really well because the energy was just so high and so palpable. And I I know that that's true for a lot of the dancers. This is my mom, everybody. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Oh, she's brought me some, thank you, provisions. That's lovely. This is great. Hi.
Hi. Aw, that's great.
Thank you. Well, that was adorable.
That was awesome.
That energy was just so intense.
Yeah.
And you can feel it from listening to that recording.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sitting there on Claudia's couch and Evan's playing this track, and I was like, oh my god! Like, I miss feeling like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an example of what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about band leading. Speaking of, you mentioned a little while ago about, I've already forgotten the name of this band leader who could, pull out this amazing jazz from the people that were on the bandstand. What is?
Simon Stribling.
Yeah, Simon. Pooling?
Stribling.
Simon Stribling. Yeah. So I'm curious about, what do you think about when you are band leading and choosing the song and choosing, everything that goes into band leading?
Yeah, it's a lot. You have to think about a lot of stuff without losing sight of the fact that you're there to play music, which is something you need to focus on in order to do well. It's hard. It's really struggling for sure. And it's also a whole different skill set from just being a sound person. And I'm glad you brought this up because it's probably not a particularly well understood role, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a couple of different sides to band leading. There's the artistic side, and then the kind of administrative side. Because generally, when you're band leading, you're also the person who's doing the contracting and hiring the side people and communicating the annoying details, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But artistically and practically on the bandstand, planning your set list is part of that, and so you need to think about making a good flow, how do you want to start and how do you want to finish, and that kind of thing has a really powerful effect on people, whether they notice it or not. A good example of that is that I had that weekly gig at Gelton Go in Vancouver for many years. And I guess I'm just my natural inclination was to always end with a big bang, and it leaves people wanting more, and then hopefully look back next week and whatever. But so that was typically what I did, and then after I had that gig for a few months or a year or something, I don't know. One night we were all feeling tired, or maybe we needed to honor something sad that had happened or something like that. We chose to end the night on a ballad, some beautiful song, and the manager needed to talk to me the next week because she said, "Can you end the night with a fast song, because last week when you ended with a slow one, people just paid their bills and left. But normally when you finish the night, people order another round it's like we sell a lot more drinks.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
Wow.
yeah, that kind of thing came up other times while I had that gig. Like I can remember, I think there was like a week that I was away, and like somebody was covering the band leading duties for me, and I think they ended on a slow song, and then like I heard about it the next week, like, oh, like they ended on this slow song and then nobody bought any more drinks. Like that kind of thing really does affect people. So yeah, you have to think about that when you're planning your sets, and ideally you're pacing out, like you don't want to have too many songs that are exactly the same tempo in a row, unless there's some reason, if you've been instructed to do that by a swing dance organization or something like that, because it sets the stage for whatever. But yeah, I try to put 2 tunes in the same key in a row.
Oh.
And, yeah. If you like, you kind of have to think about what you're gonna, like, what textures are in the tunes that you're gonna play, and like how to arrange them so that it kind of spreads everything out. Like, or if you have like 5 songs that feature this one person in the band, you probably want to spread them out over your different sets instead of accidentally putting them all in the same sets and then having it look like it's the so-and-so show. Or like there's those kind of things to think about. And then when it's actually gig time, and you kind of have to watch the room and see how what you're doing is falling on the audience.
Yeah.
Like, are people into it? If they're like, okay, like maybe we just played, like everyone was dancing for 3 songs in a row, and then I played this fast tune and everyone sat down for the whole song. Like, okay, that was too fast for this crowd. And like being able to be adaptable in those situations, I think, is really huge for being a band leader. And that goes for playing for playing like a bar gig too. Like, does everybody get up and leave if you do a certain thing? Does everybody stop and pay attention if you do a certain thing? Like, you have to really be watching, pardon me, for those moments. You also develop a lot of creative ways of communicating with your fellow musicians in loud environments, which is pretty cool. Like, you figure out things to say that like people can hear. Like, you get as much information as you can across in as few words as possible.
Yeah.
Because the more things you say, and then people want you to repeat it. You know, the thing you're trying to cue goes past, or like the stress of needing to repeat yourself a bunch of times makes you speed up, which makes everybody else speed up. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's such a different role than showing up to the gig.
Yeah.
Than leading the band and so how are those like bar gigs versus dance gigs different as a band leader? I mean, I'm sure they're different just as a musician because these are different audiences, but as a band leader, how do they contrast each other?
It can depend on there's quite a variety in the bar gigs. Like a place like Guilt & Co. is like you're on a stage and you're kind of a focal point, even if a lot of the people in the room aren't really paying attention to you, like because it's like a music venue. I think you still have to put a lot of it was important to me anyway to put a lot of care and thought into the show every week.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of totally incidental that there's music at the place. And I think in those types of gigs, it's often better if you don't put a great deal of planning forethought into those gigs.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's not really the point of the gig.
Yeah.
But I think for swing dance gigs, I like planning the set list ahead of time, and I like communicating with the person hiring me to see, like, oh, like, does your community do Shim Sham? Does your community do the Big Apple? And, like, you can do those things for them. And I think, I guess in all three of those cases I just mentioned, the key maybe is, like, knowing what your role is at this gig. Like, why is there live music at this gig that you're being hired to do? And then how can I do that to the best of my ability and get the people I'm directing to also do it to the best of their ability?
Cool. So I have a question about arranging music too, because you have quite a few arrangements that are really cool and unique, and I'm just curious how you approach arranging a song, and how that, I guess, reflects your musical personality.
Cool question. Thanks, first of all. Normally, if I write an arrangement, it's because I've had the idea for it just come to me. I definitely used to come up with a lot of arrangement ideas and tunes that I've written when I used to spend a lot of time driving that stretch of I-5 between Vancouver and Seattle. But yeah, very often there's just some idea that I've had that goes with a specific tune that I can't shake, and so I, like, write it out. And often from that point, once I like bring it to the bandstand and play it with people, it'll continue to evolve.
Cool.
Yeah, but I think just the way my brain works, all these ideas pop in there, and it's just kind of, it's like, sounds really weird, but it's like kind of like the music telling me, like, I want to be played this way, and I know you can make it happen.
Oh, that's cool.
I see something in the chat. Damien says, Jen, have you ever switched gears mid-song at a gig? Switched tempos, to a different tune altogether. On purpose or by mistake?
It's more on purpose. Like, you read in the room and you're like, oh, we have to switch, but maybe by mistake too.
Well, one of the reasons why you want to avoid putting tunes in the same key next to each other on the set list is because it's really easy to start playing the one that you just played, when, like, especially if the changes are similar. Like, if you have, like, Mean to Me and Making Whoopee and, there's another one that's similar. Like, even just those two. If you have, like, Mean to Me and Making Whoopee next to each other and Ain't Misbehaving, then, like, when you get to the bridge, it's very easy to play the bridge of the one you just played. So, admittedly, full disclosure, I've totally done that before. And yes, I've definitely switched in the middle of a tune. Yeah, for sure. You can. There's different ways to do that. It really helps if you have a lead player, whether that's trumpet or somebody else that you really trust, and you can, like, call them over and be like, we're gonna switch to this tune. After this guitar solo, can you bring that in? That helps. Or you could
Wow.
like cue an open drum solo and then get them to speed up, and then while they're doing that, talk to the rest of the band, and then like switch the tune. That sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a little less crazy as a dancer, because I feel like sometimes there's songs where I'm like, I felt like that got faster. Am I like that got like way more athletic or something, but maybe
And I mean,
not necessarily. Yeah, I don't know.
tempos do change by accident. It does happen. It's like, hopefully it's not happening every tune all the time. And hopefully if it happens, the musicians notice and go home and practice so that it's less likely to happen the next time. But
Cool. Yeah, if other people have questions as well, like definitely type them in the chats. I don't know, do one of those Zoom hand wave things. Yeah, because it'd be great to take some questions from y'all. But in the meantime, I have I guess maybe a bit more of a philosophical question, and I really didn't think about it in the context of like all of this pandemic stuff, but I wanted to kind of get your input on like what you want to see in the future of jazz and swing jazz, especially like in the context of the relationship between the dancers and the musicians, and like what you want to see in the future of jazz, which I guess in this pandemic circumstance is kind of an odd thing to think about, but I don't know. I think there's a possibility of the opportunity for a lot of change, and I think some of that can be really, really wonderful. So I'm wondering if you have anything that you want to see happen when the clouds part.
I think you're right. First of all, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity from what's happening right now, and yeah, I think I really miss playing with other musicians, and things are weird right now. I do feel hopeful, so
Yeah.
I do feel confident that we're all gonna get to play and dance together again.
Yeah.
I think, where am I going to start with this? I mean, first of all, the kind of global swing movement has been really great to see, because I don't think there's been so many people dancing to jazz music and so much of that symbiosis between dancers and musicians for a really long time. I've been really heartened to see how much more of a thing that's been even since I started playing jazz.
Yeah.
So that's great, because like the music and the dance were born together.
Yeah.
And so they kind of got estranged from one another in like the 60s.
Yeah.
But I think the roots of both the dancing and the music they come from the same place. So it's I think them coming back together is a really positive thing.
Yeah.
I think I've just trying to think about how to say what I'm thinking. I have been seeing more and more instances, I think, of kind of having everything pre-planned in terms of like live performances of music being more and more transcription based,
Mm.
and that is cool. It's important to dig into the music in that way to really learn it and understand it properly. But it's very important to not forget that improvisation is at the heart of jazz,
Yeah.
music, and dancing. I have heard a very well-known, well-respected swing dancer say that there isn't really much improvisation left in the dance because they all know the recordings so well, and the live music is so often a recreation of the recording. And that was said in a way that, like, this is how it is now, and I'm like, I think that's a problem. So I think I would like to see a little more, pardon the use of the word, swing back to, like,
Yeah.
this is, this art form is about individual expression
Yeah.
and creativity. And improvisation is a very crucial core element of jazz music and dancing, and that's not to be done away with. And I think there's always so much more to be explored in how we can do that together, and how do new sounds make you feel like moving? How does new movement make you want to play your instruments? And those are very important things that I think it can be intimidating for people, especially if you haven't been dancing for very long. It's scary to think about making things up. You want to know how to do it and then do it the right way, but like past a certain point, there is no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
It's just dancing. It's music. It's like,
Yeah.
I hope that that's helpful in answering your question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of hitting at something that I've been really thinking a lot about recently, which is just sort of like listening to like really good jazz feels like it's an attempt at saying something unspeakable or incommunicable. And, I think that's like the best grasp at this kind of ethereal something that Coltrane was talking about that I can think about right now, is that it's, jazz, we make it because we have something to say and there's no better way to attempt it. And it's sort of a constant attempt to say something that is impossible to articulate perfectly, and that's why we keep making more jazz, because there's more to say and more, I guess, but it's worth continuing the attempt.
100%.
Yeah, but it is, of course, like you said, like this really personal thing, and each person has both kind of their own style that I think kind of comes from having your own thing to say. And kind of on that note, I'm curious how you might describe either your sound or your musical identity, but you do have this really unique way of not just like a performing personality, but of sound and persona of Jen Hodge at the bass on stage. I guess what I'm wondering if you might speak a little on how you've found the current version of Jen Hodge plays the bass and how that sound is a part of that all.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Bailey. I think includes like, you know, what I was about to say sounded like it was going to sound pretentious to me. You know, like, any given musician has put a great deal of time and love into like learning from other musicians, and so I feel like hopefully in my case, I'm able to like honor all of those other people, some of whom I have known personally and some of whom I just know from recordings, or but like I think even if I'm playing like swing music, you know, there's a part of that in my voice in there that's Mozart, and there's a part of that in there that comes from learning those Beatles tunes on the electric bass when I was 7. Like, I think your voice is definitely a product of everything that you've worked on, and you know that's been an influence on you.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And ideally too, just your own actual personality comes out. Like, I know when I'm playing on a really swinging jazz gig, I know that I beam from ear to ear, and that's because it makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Just because there's not much else in the world that I would rather do. So I think that comes across, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I also really care about trying to like serve that greater the sum of its parts thing that we were talking about earlier. Like I really, even if I have a big personality, I hope that's not present in such a way that it's like, it's hard to talk about this kind of thing.
I mean,
like even if I have like a big personality, I think hopefully it's not in such a way that it like detracts from that greater thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully able to like serve it ideally.
Right.
And that, like, I spend a lot of time trying to be the best musician I can be, and like, trying to play my instrument the best I can, so that when I'm making music with other people and for other people, it serves the greater purpose. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I love that, and I really love the idea of, you know, jazz is so cool because it is, you know, the thing created by everyone who shows up is so much more amazing than anyone individually, and it really does, like, when that jazz magic happens, brings out even more beautiful dancing and wonderful music. And yeah, I think like that's just such a beautiful thing to be able to participate and contribute to something and give to the jazz so that it, you know, feeds back. It's really lovely.
Yeah, it's very much a tradition in my opinion, and it's a really beautiful, humbling. It's a beautiful and humbling thing to be a part of that tradition and get to practice it.
Yeah, And I think it's so important too that there's the recognition both of the immense amount of work that is put into being, I guess, a productive part of the jazz, but also that it is not necessarily overshadowed, but just so heavily helped by the creation of jazz with all these other people that, like, yeah, you do your work, but it's nothing without the work of everyone else. I mean, it's not nothing. You know, solo jazz or solo bass concerts, that's what I'm trying to say. Solo bass concerts are a cool thing. There's so much more as well, and, you know, in addition to being such a good dancer, good musician, whatever. And I think that's a really cool thing to recognize.
For sure. Yeah. When you get to plug your piece of the puzzle in with everything else, and it all just fits together, and it's just this, it's the most incredible feeling. It's a very, very special thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wanted to also ask you about your favorite song. And someone asked, I saw someone put in the comments a question about, I guess, your method of arranging.
Right, I see it.
Yeah.
A better guy in the chat.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time pulling up the chat, but yeah, so I wonder if you might, you know, talk a little bit about, like, your favorite song.
Cool. Oh man, I mean, it's definitely very tough to pick a favorite song.
Right. Yeah.
But perhaps I could tie that question with this friend's question about arranging trad jazz songs. And creating an arrangement, like, from choosing a song to focus on. So, let's see. Why don't we talk about Bordenella, which is the first track on my All Spirit Living Jazz album. And I don't know if everybody's heard that or not. But, like, that tune, for example, I had always liked that tune, and I'd always wanted to do an arrangement of it. And I felt I needed to do an arrangement of it because it wasn't a tune that the people in my community knew already. So I kind of felt I needed to bring something to the table for people to read if we were going to play it. And then I heard a great trio play that tune, the Emmett Cohen Trio from New York. And my arrangement is totally different from their arrangement, but it was hearing them do that tune live, I was like, oh man, I've always wanted to do that tune. That kind of got me thinking about it. And that tune, there's like 2 sections. And I think just, like, thinking about the sections kind of just gave me some ideas with the, like, different inherent characters that they each have. And then also I checked out a lot of different recordings and tried to look for the sheet music, and those are 2 steps I almost always take if I'm arranging a tune. So in doing that with that particular tune, I found that I think the 2 sections, I think they were originally written in the same key as one another. But in checking out the recordings, I found that it was very common when people played it to change keys. So I explored doing that versus not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I ultimately chose to do it, but I wanted to go back to the first diction, so then that presents the issue of like, how do you go back to the original key?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, those are definitely some factors that came in there. And that too, I wanted like a really sparse texture for the first part, and I don't even know how or why I thought of it, but like I've got like a big bass double stop we talked about double stops already in this section. I can't believe I've talked about bass double stops twice in it.
You're winning at bass bingo today, Jen.
Yeah. It starts with that, and then like, the harmonics on the guitar, which I can't really recreate. Yeah, it's not gonna work. And I don't know what possessed me to do that, because it's a little bit weird, but like, I think in just like messing around, mulling over the sound that I wanted, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely want that big tenth in the bass held for 2 whole bars at once. I don't know if I'm doing a very good job of answering this question.
Certainly, I think giving us a lot of insight on like, like how your brain is working for when you're, thinking of texture when you're writing music. Like, I think about that when I hear music. I don't write music, so it makes sense that you would think about it. But yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. I thought that was neat too, because like for that style of music, it's a lot of like 4 beats, hitting you in the beats all the time, which I love.
Yeah.
But that's like the total opposite of doing that. Which means that when that swing drops, when you get to the bridge part of that first section, it's all the more powerful because you've got this like floatiness, and then it's like, oh, the thing that I'm used to, I love this thing, and then it gets back to the floatiness, and before it does ultimately change key and settle into the feel we're more used to, but like, that's fun. I don't know.
I love watching people dance to that song, like, and I like dancing to it too, because it like, we kind of do get into like the it's easy to fall into, rather, the swing robot, like, okay, you get the beat and now you don't have to listen, and that change makes you have to listen. You don't have the option of not listening, and I think that's a really really cool thing, because I think lots of jazz is so good that I think it would be really hard to not listen, but when it changes so much from what you're used to, you really have to listen, and it's really cool.
Cool. I'm so excited to hear that.
Yeah.
I think those things catch the musicians in that way too. Like, I remember the first time I brought that arrangement to Guilt & Co. And I remember, I guess not so much from the front line, but like definitely from Josh. He was like, "Do you really want me to play tied whole notes?" Yeah. Or like, I've handed that chart to people before, and like they look at it, and then they automatically do the thing that they're used to, and I'm like, no, tied whole notes, and they're like, really?
Yeah.
Tied whole notes. Yeah. So I don't know. Why shouldn't tied whole notes be a part of twanging jazz sometimes?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. Stretch it, right?
Yeah, of course. There's so many potential colors on the palettes, or like tools in the toolbox. Like even if if it, some of them we don't use very often. Maybe they're worth taking out sometimes and being like, what can I do with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, something that Becca and I were talking about in class today was the different ways that we experience jazz. Like when I hear jazz, I automatically just start painting a picture. Like it paints a picture for me in a scene and a really like detailed visual. And for Becca, she was talking about like textures and colors. And I'm curious what you experience when you hear jazz, or maybe even when you play it, if you have something that's sort of, I guess, at all explainable that you experience.
Yeah, there's definitely sometimes music conjures up images for me like that. I think for me, probably first and foremost, my automatic way I experience any kind of music is feeling. Yeah, so music has a very emotional effect on me.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I look so happy when I'm playing swing and jazz all the time. Yeah, I think different musical textures kind of have different moods and make me feel different ways. And I think when I'm playing, I am like endeavoring to convey those things as well, on the mood of the music. And yeah, I know that's not how everybody experiences music, so
Yeah, I think that's part of the cool part about jazz. That's why we all dance differently and want to play different notes, or that's why every soloist plays vastly different things.
totally.
Yeah. So I just wanted to see if anyone else has any questions from the Peanut Gallery.
Yeah. What's up, Peanut Gallery?
Yeah, if you... Oh, yeah, Damien's got one. Yeah, go for it.
Well,
Or a
it's not
thought?
so much
Yeah.
well, actually, it's kind of a question. It's a mixture. It's a combo.
Combo, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always noticed, Jen, is that you present so well when you're talking about jazz and just when you band lead, and even in interviews like this, you're very articulate, but also, I don't know, human. And I think that's a really powerful ability. And I was just wondering, I don't know, does you feel like being a band leader is related to public speaking at all, or are you always good at that, or just how much does that come into play?
Man, it's encouraging to hear you say those things, because right before this, I did a different Zoom thing, and it was less interactive and more of a presentation, and I was so nervous, and I really didn't see that coming, and in the little break that I had between the two calls, I went downstairs to fill up my glass of water, and I was talking to my dad, and I was like, man, I was so nervous, and I never get that nervous when I'm talking on a mic at my gigs, and I probably did once upon a time, but I'm not sure. I was saying I don't know if that's because this is a new medium that I'm doing this on, or if it was if it was something to do with not having the people I was presenting to there in person, and you can't hear them react when you say something. If I say something I think is funny, and then I don't hear anybody laugh, I'm like, oh no. But so I'm encouraged to hear that I don't. Yeah, because I was a little bit trying to think about do I and I was like, I promise I know who I'm talking about. I promise I did prepare for this. I think, like, under normal circumstances, I just really love this music, and I'm, like, really excited to talk about it, and if I get to talk about it on a mic and people are listening, well, that's kind of fun and exciting. And also, like, when I really love something, I want to know as much about it as I possibly can. So, like, I'll totally, like, read about these tunes and read about musicians, and then I get really excited about the stuff that I learned. So if I'm, like, talking about it on a microphone, it's probably because I'm really excited about it and I want to tell people.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that is what it is. It's very nerdy, and I am okay with that. Yeah.
That actually reminds me of something that I think I do Tai Chi, and my Tai Chi teacher once told me that like tension is trying to be someone that we're not, and relaxation is trying to be just accepting who we are, basically.
Cool.
And that he meant that physically, like when you physically try to be more talented than we are, or whatever, it manifests as tension. And and it is clear that you love jazz, and I feel the same way about the topics that I'm totally, like, excited about. It's that I feel like I can talk freely and present on them because I've invested all of myself into it, and it's easy, it's relaxing.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
That also makes me feel inspired to keep practicing tuba, because definitely the main roadblock I'm having with my tuba playing right now is I'm, like, trying to play something and it's too hard, and then I realize that I'm really tense, and I'm like, I don't think you can play this instrument and be tense.
Right.
But then, why do I keep getting tense?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's I'm trying to be better at tuba than I am yet.
Right.
That's helpful perspective. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
I wonder, on the subject of, practicing and learning new things, I wonder if you have any perhaps Wynton Marsalis style advice for young musicians, or, I think learning things is a skill on its own. But in terms of learning jazz related things, I wonder if you have any advice for people that are new or wanting to dive deeper into this thing that they've discovered, if that is jazz.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of encouraging anyone and everyone who wants to dive in and check out and experience jazz, for sure. Mm-hmm. Definitely do it. Welcome. Have fun. I think keeping an open mind is a very helpful practice to adopt. Mm-hmm. And being observant about what resonates with you and what doesn't, and following those things, and, like, being okay with both of them. If you like something that all your friends don't like, that's okay. Or if you don't like something that all your friends do like, then that's okay too. And yeah, I don't know, being kind to yourself and others is all a part of that as well. I think it's an important part of the communal art of jazz. And also it's a lifelong pursuit, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, and that's true for the rest of your life, and that's a pretty exciting thing.
Yeah. And
a helpful thing to keep in perspective as well. If you're feeling frustrated that you're not where you want to be yet, just keep on it. it'll come.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's I don't know, maybe sometimes easy to forget that, like, you started, and of course you will keep growing, and it will be, if you want it to be, something that will grow for as long as you choose to participate in it. And I like that is such an exciting idea, that you could just keep getting better for as long as you're around. That's a really lovely perspective.
Some of the musicians that I know that I look up to the most, like I think of John Eric Kelso, who's an amazing trumpet player.
Yeah.
He's just one of the most incredible musicians I have ever met, heard, and fortunately for me, played with.
Cool.
And he does things all the time, like I'm just always trying to get better, and like just
Cool.
every day trying to get a little bit better at the trumpet, or like better at listening and better at like knowing tune. And he's one of the best people I have ever encountered in all those things. But like, you know, he's not self-deprecating about it, but he also feels like he can continue to get better for the rest of his life. There's a really famous anecdote about the cellist Pablo Casals, was a Spanish cellist. Pardon me. Definitely one of the greatest cellists that's ever lived. And when he was in his 90s, he did this interview in which it came up that he practices every day, and I think the interviewer was like, "You're Pablo Casals and you're in your 90s. Like, do you really need to practice it? Like, why do you practice it today still?" And his answer was, "Because I think I'm getting better."
That's amazing. Oh, that's
really
beautiful. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 90-year-old goals.
Seriously, for sure. Yeah, actually, speaking of which, I think it was Casey McGill made a post on my Facebook wall a few days ago of, it was 2 pictures of his friend's mother or grandmother, one from the 40s and one from, I don't know, the 2000s or something like that. She's a bass player, and those are really cool pictures. I think the later one, she was really old anyway, so go check out my Facebook wall for some visual inspiration about continuing to get better.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think we're nearing 7 o'clock. I mean,
Okay.
I want to be respectful of your time, of course. But I was wondering if you have a favorite song to play. I mean, maybe it is your favorite song, but and then of course I was wondering if you might be willing to tell us a little bit about why you like playing it, and if you would be willing to play a little piece of it for us.
Yeah. I have so many favorite songs.
Yeah.
But I will very happily play for you something out of my really developed solo bass repertoire.
Yeah.
Just move my table over. By the way, I haven't even mentioned this yet. I've got this phonograph set up because I played the 78 example for my presentation earlier.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, I know. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's a silver lining about being at here, that I had sent my awesome 78s and my photograph to my parents until whenever it was going to make sense for me to take them to New York. So I've got my bass here and my record player and my record collection. It's not so bad.
That's amazing. Oh, that's one of my favorite memories in Harang is going to my 2 friends from Stockholm have a house in Harang, and they also are record collectors. They've got an amazing collection, and they haul all of their favorites out to Harang every summer. And we would sit around almost like it was a campfire. We would sit around their little record player and listen, and they would, anyway, tell all of their favorite tidbits. And I mean, they're just total music geeks, but anyway.
It is so magical. I just, man,
Yeah.
like, from people hauling their records and record players out there to like all of the, like those Spanish chefs bringing all that food, like
Yeah.
food from Spain. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a special, magical place.
Yeah, like, you know, people bring the craziest stuff.
Yeah.
I remember when I went there, Megan Gilmore was largely responsible for getting me out there.
Oh, cool.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember her saying, like, we have a base, and it was like, well, who knows what that's going to be like, but beggars can't be choosers out in rural Sweden. And I remember just, like, going to this shed that they had built for the duration of the camp, and we opened the door, and there was, like, a base sitting in this shed, and it's like, this is crazy that all of this stuff is just here.
Yeah, and the pile of accordions and saxophones and like whatever else is in that shed.
I loved too, like, it was like, this is Jen, she's here. If you need anything to do with live music this week, get her to do it. And like, wake up in the morning and be like, well, I wonder what's going to happen today. Oh, and by the morning, I mean like, I don't know, 2 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
And then like, wandering over to like, that main Focus area and just having people come up to me and be like, oh, good, you're Jen, right? Yes, we need a live band over here in like 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay. You have an instrument case. Let's go play some music.
That's awesome.
What's your name? What's in that case? Great.
And I really love I think it's such a special place where the spirit of serendipity is just like alive and well. And I think, you know, you mentioned how important improvisation is, and I think it's harangue is a good reminder of every single way improvisation can possibly take form.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Everything was improvised all day long.
Yeah.
Living, breathing improvisation, and I really loved that about it.
Yeah.
So great. All right. Well, let's see. I'm trying to think of which tune to play for you here. I'm gonna play a tune called Red River Valley. It's actually a tune that has a lot of different names, but that's the one that I've known it by the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of Jonathan Doyle's all-time favorite tunes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he's my very dear friend who I really miss playing music with. So that makes me feel like it's on theme as far as favorites go. And one of the things that we've talked about being great about this tune is how it's a very versatile tune. So I'll do a few different things with it and see what you think. even
Yeah.
occur to me that I should have checked that first.
No, it was great. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
That was awesome.
Uh, what was the name of that song again?
Red River Valley. I think
Red
it's
River Valley?
also known as In the Streets of the City.
Mm.
And Willie Nelson recorded it with totally like Willie Nelson original lyrics.
Oh,
And
cool.
I think it's called "Can I Sleep in Your Arms" or "Can I Sleep in Your Arms, My Lady," something like that. And Doyle plays it all the time. So next time you're in a
I'll have
position
to-
to hear Jonathan Doyle live, he would be very happy if you requested it.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Oh, well,
Hey, now that I have my bass in my hands, why don't I play a one or two?
please do. Oh my goodness, that would be wonderful.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna take a stab at my little arrangements here of a tune called "Lonesome Road,"
Ooh.
which was written by one of the first crooners, whose name is Gene Austin, and I talked about him in the presentation that I did earlier, because
Cool.
he made the first ever recording of My Blue Heaven and of
Oh.
Bye Bye Blackbird. So there's some trivia for you. Yeah. Speaking of trivia, this is a good opportunity to remind everybody to come to the Brothers Arnson album release and dance party tomorrow night, because I am in charge of running Arnson Brothers trivia, and I think it's going to be really funny.
Oh my god.
Okay, Lonesome Road. And my arrangement since we were talking about arrangements, my arrangement is inspired by an acoustic guitar player called Andy McKee, and by the Boswell sisters, and with a little bit of Louis Armstrong. So there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much. That was lovely.
Absolute pleasure.
And what was that one called again?
It's called Lonesome Road.
Lonesome Road. Cool.
Yeah, Louis Armstrong recorded it, and the Boswell sisters recorded it, and those are two really great renditions. Yeah, and I bet you Gene Austin recorded it since he wrote it, and he's a very, very popular singer back in the 20s. So
Yeah.
people wanted to hear him do it.
And Hannah just said there's a great video of Sister Rosetta Tharpe doing it too. Hannah, if you have the link to it, go ahead and toss it in the chat if you'd like. That sounds awesome. Cool.
Oh, yeah, great. Okay. Hell yeah. Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah. Oh, that's rad. Cool.
Cool. Well, this has definitely been wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. This has been just, really wonderful and great to hear your perspectives on all this jazz stuff.
I'm definitely always happy to talk about jazz.
Yeah, this is wonderful. And thank you so much for playing as well.
Oh man,
it's such
my pleasure.
I didn't really realize until someone is, even through a tiny square, it just, it feels so different to have live music, which is, I don't know, something that I've just been missing terribly currently. Yeah, thanks Hannah for sharing that. But
my pleasure. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
yeah, I'm gonna toss, so that everybody knows, I'm gonna toss the Venmo, PayPal stuff for Jen if you want to leave the band that appeared in your living room today a tip. And we're about to have a solo jazzy zoomy party. And Hannah during Lindy Bout did this cool thing where she suggested that if you want to dance with a person, you can send them a private message, and then you both can make your faces really big, and you can dance with one person, which I thought was a really cool thing. So if you want to try that out, just private message people, and we can get to some dancing. So and I've also tossed. We can find more about Jen Hodge, and you have a lot of albums out as well. So there's a Bandcamp link and your website link. You can find that in the chat. But you should go listen to more Jen, everybody.
Aw, thanks. And if you're feeling moved to buy some music, there's a little less than 24 hours left in the pre-order period for the new Brothers Arnson album, and during the pre-order period, all the money gets split between all the musicians in the on the recording. So that's a thought as well. And then we're gonna celebrate the release tomorrow night.
Yeah, and the release party. There's a Facebook event that has the link also in the chat, so you should go check that out. And that they're doing a Zoom fun party too. So we can dance all weekend this weekend.
Dance all weekend, just like a normal weekend.
Normal weekend in the before times. So all right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jen. This was really wonderful. I'm gonna toss on some tunes for us to dance to. But if you have a muted mic, maybe a round of applause seems kind of like a fun thing to do, or something.
Thank you, Bailey.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the very first Talk O Time. Once again, you were listening to the jazzy thoughts and tunes of Jen Hodge. You can find her music on Bandcamp, and she has a new album up for pre-order right now called Girl in the Groove, so make sure you check that out. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll see you next month for the second edition of Taco Time. Take care, and thanks for listening.